Welcome, everybody, to our session today, Reimagining the Librarian Skill Set for a Machine Learning Era. Glad to have you all with us. I'm Leah Wright. I'm a product manager for our ebook products here at Clarivate. And today I am joined by Steve Rakusic from Florida Gulf Coast University and Evan Fruhoff from the University of South Florida, who are going to be talking to us about their experiences with AI at their campuses. We were also set to be joined by Kyle Byland from Saginaw Valley State University. Unfortunately, he had an emergency come up and won't be with us today. So we do apologize for the slightly shorter session than originally planned, but I'm sure we're still going to have a great time. I know these other two gentlemen have some really fantastic stuff to share with us today. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Steve to kick us off.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Rakusic. I'm the social sciences librarian at Florida Gulf Coast University, and I'm going to be talking first a little bit about what we've done so far with AI at this university, and then more specifically at our library. And then I'm going to just talk a little bit about how that is, my own experiences with AI, what I've done with it so far, how it's kind of, changed what I do. So yeah, we can move on to there. Okay. FGCU and AI policy. So at FGCU, there's not really a policy exclusively devoted to AI, at least not at this point, but there are a lot of different areas that do touch upon it. So through the Office of the Provost, we have a generative AI and FGCU teaching and learning webpage. This page provides guidelines for both students and faculty on the use of AI. And in this, on this page, faculty are directed to the core syllabus policy statements webpage, which has a section on generative AI. Among other things, this section does state that students in this course may use generative AI tools only with explicit permission to do so for specific course assignments and activities. Both the provost page and the syllabus page state that student use of generative AI is covered in the Student Code of Conduct, which addresses academic integrity. But at this point, that code of conduct does not specifically mention AI at all. But it is just pointed out in these other documents that AI does fall under the idea of academic integrity as expressed in the Student Code of Conduct. And one other thing I want to mention here at FGCU, institution-wide, this isn't really a policy thing, but here at FGCU, we recently established the Dendritic Institute. This is a new institute on campus, which they describe as a hub for innovation, research, and education in the field of AI. So we have a whole institute devoted to all sorts of things related to AI. And among other things, this institute offers an AI Academy, which provides AI training and events. So with that, I'll move on to AI tools at the university library and what we've been doing more specifically in terms of librarianship. Well, a lot of this was actually thrust upon us in many ways because several of the databases that the library has subscribed to for years, including EBSCO, ProQuest, Web of Science, the Primo Discovery Service, and probably some others, they have now incorporated various AI tools into those platforms to assist with research. So these tools we've been dealing with all this time, these databases, well, they have it now right in there. So it's not a matter of the library deciding to have gone out and gotten some institutional subscription to some separate AI tool. They're in a lot of the tools we've been using all along. I also want to mention one thing the library did that was pretty significant is that through an initiative led by the library dean, FGCU adopted Alethea, which is described as an AI-powered academic coach. This tool uses generative AI to help students with reading comprehension, and all FGCU faculty can use Alethea through Canvas. So this isn't necessarily a library thing, but it was sort of first and foremost pushed by the library dean. And then we also have, as I believe a lot of academic libraries now do, an artificial intelligence research guide that's just available on our website among all the other various research guides that we have. And as this guide states, it is designed for FGCU faculty to help better understand how to use artificial intelligence in their teaching and research. And the guide provides information and links for several online AI tools, such as ChatGPT, Copilot, Consensus, and Elicit, to name just a few. So, it's actually like a whole chart of all these different tools, most of which have a free version, but also paid options. And, it's just a chart that kind of briefly explains what these things are, what they do. Are they paid or free, and so forth. Not necessarily promoting them. Well, I mean, in a certain sense, the fact that they are on the page, we're promoting them, but it really is just supposed to be kind of just a guide to say, hey, here's what's out there. And I imagine this will be updated quite a bit. So regarding AI tools, or rather regarding AI in the day-to-day work at the library, I would say that thus far, AI has not made a huge impact on everyday library work, but there are some notable changes. For example, during instruction sessions, many of the librarians, including me, now demonstrate the aforementioned AI tools within the databases. So if I'm showing the Primo discovery service, I will point out, well, you can go to this AI research assistance and put your research question in using natural language. This is another way to do it. I mean, we have it, so we feel we need to show these things to our students. So to the extent we're showing them just how to search for articles and things in general, if there are these additional tools, we're going to incorporate that into what we show. And then many of us use AI tools ourselves, such as ChatGPT, just to simplify certain tasks, like taking meeting notes and writing formal email messages, things like that. That's not just a library thing. That's probably almost the entire work world overall can now use ChatGPT for a lot of these basic office tasks, that just make things a little easier now. And then several librarians are working on external projects. So these are papers, presentations such as this one, other articles related to AI. So I still feel it's pretty early. So a lot of it hasn't been incorporated yet into everyday practice, but we're working on various things, trying to get up to speed on all this stuff and contribute to the overall discussion of AI. So that's something that's taking up a lot of our time as well. So with that, I'm going to go on to my experience, my more individual experience, what I've been doing, or my thoughts on what's going on with AI in the library world. And what I'd really like to start with is a study that a colleague and I embarked on a while back, which is basically an AI research tool comparison study. We decided to compare Primo Research Assistant to several somewhat similar products, those being Elicit, SciSpace, Consensus, and Perplexity. So we're looking at all of these in terms of the quality of sources they returned. So all these tools also give written responses, in a ChatGPT way or whatever. We're not looking at that, that's worth addressing too, but we're simply looking at how do these tools, when you give them a prompt using natural language, how well do they do in finding resources, good sources for the students to use. So we gave each of the 5 AI tools the same 8 prompts, all of which are based on actual questions received from students at some point in the past. And we proceeded to evaluate the sources returned. I was curious to see how well the tools understood natural language questions, because for years, we've been teaching students to conduct searches using keywords and Boolean operators in a traditional database search. In fact, in the past, we would sometimes have to explicitly tell them, well, don't type in the whole research question or your thesis statement into the search box. They won't understand that. You'll come back with very few, if any, results. And now here we're saying, no, now you can use natural language. So for the most part, the tools understood the prompts. That part they actually seem to do a pretty good job with. The bigger issue was the database or whatever collection of sources the particular tool was pulling from. So for example, Elicit draws from Semantic Scholar, Primo Research Assistant draws from the Primo Central Discovery Index, Perplexity searches the web. They're pulling stuff from different places, and a lot of it wasn't so much the AI aspect and the comprehending the question. It was more that it was more about where they're pulling from. And it struck me that if poor sources were returned, it was because the databases contained poor sources. So for example, we found a lot of stuff from kind of questionable journals. But then again, traditional searching might have led to the same thing. If you're searching a database that has some questionable journal articles in it, well, then those might have just as come up in a traditional search. So I don't know if we can really blame that on AI per se. One question I want to bring up in particular, one prompt I want to note, is one that was quite specific. One of the prompts we fed it was quite specific and pertained to a local issue here in Southwest Florida. And the question was the following: how feasible is it to incorporate the greater Pine Island area, Matlacha, Bokeelia, St. James City, and Pineland, So this, and this again came from an actual student, and almost all the tools did very poorly with this question. Probably due mainly to the fact that their databases contained almost nothing on these particular Southwest Florida communities. Examples of poor sources found included articles about Pine Island Glacier, which apparently is the fastest melting glacier in Antarctica. That has nothing to do with this. They found articles about unrelated islands and various environmental issues. Articles about pine trees, wasn't really what we were looking for. Those came back. And articles about community planning in unrelated locations, which maybe you could stretch to say that those could have been used, the useful sources, but for the most part, not too good. The best results were actually returned by Perplexity, because it found websites that relate directly to Pine Island communities, and in some cases specifically discuss the issue of municipal incorporation, that's what the research topic was. But it's because they were, it found this stuff on the web. Now, none of these were peer-reviewed articles, which is often what professors require. And it's also quite possible that a simple Google search would have yielded roughly the same results. So I don't really know if Perplexity did anything better than what Google could have done 3 years ago. I should also point out these tests were run way back in February, and it's likely that the AI technology has improved. Though again, the main issue seemed to be the content within the databases, not so much the comprehension of the natural language. And then again, since that time, well-known subscription databases, EBSCO, Web of Science, they've added AI tools that respond to natural language queries. And these might perform better in general if they indeed contain better content. So we started this before those aspects were added to things like EBSCO and Web of Science. And if we were to do it again, we would certainly include those, and maybe we will do so. So I just wanted to get that out there to kind of just touch upon a study I was doing. I want to wrap up with just some commentary on AI and subject librarians' traditional work. I'm a subject librarian or a liaison librarian, whatever you want to call it. In my case, the social sciences, which is pretty broad. I cover a lot, anthropology, sociology, political science, public administration, social work, and several more than that. So, how is this affecting my traditional work? And I touched on it a little bit, with the AI tools that are now incorporated into the databases. So now, when I do an instruction session, yes, I show those tools because they're there. I'm going to show them. And same if I meet with a student in person, depending on how, what their research needs are. But I don't feel things are so different, at least not thus far. And I'm not saying this is a prediction, and this is not to say, oh, well, nothing will be different, or nor am I saying, oh my God, it's going to be massively different. I really don't know. I'm just saying thus far, not too different. I feel like we'll still need to help students with things like prompt engineering, which is sort of like the equivalent of what we've been doing for years when we help them construct searches. We're going to continue to help students refine their thinking about the topic. That's always been a big part of it. They're not just magically going to get back the sources that are best for them. It takes some thinking. It's an iterative process. You're going to have to try one question and then maybe try rewording it and maybe add a different term. Similar to, not the same as, but similar to what we've been doing all along with adjusting searches. So I feel like a lot of it is the same. We're still going to have to kind of help coach students through, kind of just the thinking process, thinking about, well, what is your topic? What do you want to get at? Is it too broad? Is it too narrow? And kind of walking them through this so that they hit upon the best prompts that will yield the best results in terms of sources. So I feel that's sort of similar. And then I have a couple questions going forward. And one of these is, how can we get faculty buy-in? This is something I run into all the time, not just with the issue of AI. I feel like a lot of the resources we have get underutilized. And they get underutilized because the faculty are not in any way incorporating them into their assignments. And if they really want to help with information literacy, while also obviously giving assignments that pertain to the content of those courses, they may need to be a little more deliberate about what they do. And for that, I think it would help if they consulted with us, the librarians, where we could give them suggestions. We could even do things like suggest an assignment where they use the regular Primo search, traditional search interface, and attempt to find sources using keywords and see what results come up, and then have them use the AI research assistant, which responds to natural language, see what comes up, have them reflect on, which worked, and which didn't, or which worked better, which worked worse? Did they like one over the other? What were the differences in terms of the sources returned? I think working these sorts of assignments into the curriculum would really help. But faculty need to collaborate with librarians, I think, to do that. So getting back to the first question, how can we get faculty buy-in? I guess my true answer is I don't really know. But I wanted to bring the question up because I do think it is important to get that faculty buy-in. Maybe I'm not aggressive enough in promoting the various services and tools we have. Maybe that could be it. But I'm always hesitant to step on the toes of faculty too, because I know, they're going to teach their material in the way they want to. But so the how do we get, I guess I don't have a good answer, but I do think we need to get that faculty buy-in. And because I do think the library does have an opportunity here to have an expanded role in curriculum design. And that's what I have.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve. That was fantastic. I especially love those questions at the end. It's always okay to not have all the answers. One of the great things about sessions like this is that we can raise questions that are food for thought for our colleagues and peers. So thank you again. And now we're going to hand it over to Evan.
Perfect. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Evan Fruhoff. I'm a librarian at the University of South Florida in beautiful Tampa, Florida. I specifically our liaison librarian to our College of Engineering and our recently opened Bellini College for AI. I'm really excited to talk a little bit about our experience at USF with AI, some of the deployments we're doing, but also my experience and role in all of that. I'm lucky enough to lead a lot of the instruction we do on AI at USF. And so I'm really excited to share a little bit of what we've been working on, in addition to how we kind of contrast from an institution like FGCU. I think it's great to hear some of the insights from different institutions so you can kind of understand how each institution is handling it and also the directions they're headed so far. So let's go ahead and get started there. So first and foremost, USF, very similarly to FGCU, actually, we leverage a tech policy that was built pre-AI, actually, in order to restrict AI usage. Now, that has become a little trickier of late, but as a whole, that tech policy really comes at the idea that use of technologies in any one classroom is restricted by the instructor of that class. If they're totally comfortable with full AI usage, which we do definitely have faculty that are comfortable with that, students are allowed to do that. If a faculty explicitly says, hey, I'm not comfortable with any AI usage, they are theoretically supposed to follow that. Now, there are a lot of intricacies to that. There's very little ways to stop it. In fact, our institution, like many others, actually banned like Turnitin and other platforms for their AI detectors. Plagiarism still being checked through those platforms, but AI detection was so unreliable through those that it really leaves a lot of gaps. And most recently, we started seeing, as Steve kind of mentioned with some of our databases as well as our Microsoft Suite tool sets like Word, PowerPoint, and others are integrated with AI regardless of if you want that there or not. So many of our students technically violate those policies just by using the applications the university gives them. So it's a very gray space that, while we do have some policy on it, it's ultimately trying to put control in the hands of faculty in a world where it's not always there, frankly. We try to support that through the library. At USF Libraries, we have a clear disclaimer across all of our workshops and programming that we do on AI, that all of the work we're doing is to better educate our population, but the actual decision to utilize AI in the classroom ultimately falls on those instructors. This is a really big thing that you'll see as I'm kind of talking about AI at USF, is that we really don't want to step on anybody's toes. Well, we want to be a leader in the conversation. We want to contribute in many ways. We really didn't want to say, hey, we're going to be the only voice on AI. We're going to tell people how to use AI or not use AI. Instead, we want to better educate folks on both the pros and cons, how far these tools can work, and especially in an information literacy context, where these tools are coming from, the knowledge they're using, and the new content they're generating. In the library itself, we actually have seen a lot of AI usage. I'll talk about it in our next slide, but our community of practice on AI specifically has been supporting a lot of great developments and usage of AI in the space. While there are still some folks who are slowly adopting and or considering AI, we have a lot of power users in the library. Some of the most utilized AI tool sets we end up seeing as a result are tools that help with research discovery or screening of some sort, especially for folks who are working with students and faculty or conducting their own research. These tools have proven a huge boon. Now, it's important to note that you have to understand the limitations of these tools. As Steve pointed out, many of these tool sets lack the knowledge bases required to do quality research. And so we've had to do a lot of supplementing and backfilling, but those kind of conversations through our community practice have allowed many of us to understand the true limits of these tools so that we can apply them properly. Secondly, we're utilizing them in collection review and metadata development. This is a really exciting end. I don't work in our collections, but I love hearing about how our collections folks are using AI to expedite processes for metadata, alt text, and other fields that otherwise would have taken significant amounts of time, especially with certain federal mandates on different alt text or metadata being required within certain fields for accessibility. The expediting of review of some of these imagery documents through AI has been really game-changing in many ways, and it's something that I don't know if we all considered when it was initially coming towards us. Keeping in mind as well, many of us are leveraging either third-party AIs or we're using a Microsoft Copilot suite of some sort. Many of those folks are using just the base enterprise version that's offered to many of us at USF. However, certain teams have acquired funding to get additional licenses for more advanced AI models or specific API calls. Finally, we're actually seeing our reference services too, which is really exciting for us. We have made a kind of priority that students and our patrons at that rate aren't going to necessarily be forced to utilize an AI if they don't want to. There should always be a human operator, a live human being on the other side of the phone or the chat service that we're working with. But we are starting to find some ways to supplement, to expedite different form processes, to handle routine chat inquiries when our staff isn't available, especially with things like hurricane closures and certain periods where the library may not be open. It's really handy to have these kind of tools supplement what we're doing, but we're trying to do that ethically and correct. And I'm excited to talk about that in our next slide. Finally, what we've actually seen that impact is expedited research processes. We're seeing researchers produce rapid fire research that, especially with being able to check those limitations of those AIs, are still coming out as quality pieces of content. We're not really compromising the quality of research we're producing, but we're expediting the speed to find papers, to review those papers, and even to help with some formatting of content. We try to avoid doing like drafting or bulk writing, having the AI generate content for us, but those kind of brainstorming, those touch points to kind of help guide our research through the process have been really helpful. We've also obviously seen things like improved automation, and that continues to happen. With the more and more some of these systems get integrated into our ecosystem, the easier it is to improve our automation there. There are just some processes, especially when we think of things like forms or back-end processes that we're doing repetitively. There's a lot of pathways to leveraging some of these AI models if we give it access to the right information and we train our staff to teach AIs properly the patterns we need them to follow. Finally, I think this is probably the biggest thing here, is we want our AI deployments, and we are continuing to do this, AI deployments that are transparent. We want our faculty, our staff, even our students who are working in the library to be set up for success and not have to worry about using their AI and feel like they've compromised their own ethics or integrity as an employee. That's a huge part of why we set up the community in practice and why we continue to try to evaluate different tool sets and say, hey, is this a quality application of AI, or should we just avoid it in general? A great example of that is, again, our chat reference service, and I'll talk about that here just momentarily, but we really wanted to make sure we didn't give up what made the library a space that folks trusted, that they felt like they were getting quality answers from, and that they could still connect with a human being, frankly. Too many teams, not just at USF, but across the nation, are just getting populated with a lot of AI there, and sometimes you can't even talk to a human immediately. And we wanted to be different than that, despite still trying to use these technologies. All right, let's pop over to that next slide, and I'd love to get into some of these specifics a little bit more and my experience at USF. So what really kind of sets us apart as an institution is USF has recently joined the AAU, the Association of American Universities, as well as becoming an R1 institution in years past, with a strong support for AI solutions. And this has been really exciting. Not only does that mean additional funding for us to be able to take on some of these really great initiatives, it also means that we have researchers at USF who are really excited about AI. In fact, I mentioned before that I'm the liaison to our new AI college at USF Tampa, and that actually just launched this year. We're really excited about that. And while many of those or faculty we had before, there's new funding and opportunities for both our students and faculty alike. And even for the library, this has meant a partnership with them. They actually, their college currently resides on our top floor of our Tampa library, which has made collaborations with them quite easy. And we've got dedicated researchers who are really pushing boundaries in the AI field there, which is quite exciting. Additionally, we're also supported through a research IT unit. I'm excited to tell a little bit about how they've supported us in the library, but this is a team of IT professionals that their focus isn't explicitly just trying to keep infrastructure going. These are folks who are helping us explore new possibilities with different technologies, AI included, figuring out how to finance it, figure out how to deploy it, how to support it long-term, especially for teams like in the library where we may lack that expertise. Being able to get that support from those experts so that we can rapidly dive into some of these new initiatives and not wait to hire a whole brand new team and find funding for a whole new team of folks who can support that. And it's allowed a lot of our librarians to take some time to upskill, to get trained up by these professionals in research IT, so that ultimately we can deploy some really exciting stuff on our own. And that leads me into our kind of second step here, is our actual exploration of these AI tool sets. Now, we've certainly done our deep dives into some really compelling platforms, like Steve was mentioning, platforms like Elicit, SciSpace. We additionally platforms like Julius AI, even our own Copilot platform, to really understand their limits, where they're coming from, figure out how to use them successfully, or frankly, even have conversations about why we should avoid some of them. However, I think what's been most exciting is the opportunity for grant funding. I mentioned before, because we're an R1 AAU institution, there's a lot of additional funding. We're lucky enough in the state of Florida to get a lot of additional funding through performance-based funding and preeminent funding, which allows us to have a little bit more leeway for different projects. One of those projects was just recently developed this last year, and that is Link. Link is an AI chatbot that we ended up developing, a custom chatbot agent specifically for reference help across the library web pages and resources. This was funded through an internal AI grant at USF Libraries, and really allowed us to team up with that research IT unit to do what we call a citizen developer approach. Instead of having our research IT unit build out a chatbot for us, we built our own from the ground up using the Copilot Studio environment. And while we're working on a little bit of research currently in order to get some findings about that published, I'm really excited to say that we were able to complete that grant project. We have an operational chatbot on our library website, but it's interesting because it doesn't replace our Ask Librarian. In fact, what it's trying to do is trying to fit hand in hand with that, and try to fill those gaps that the chat platform isn't currently providing, whether that's a coverage of certain hours, whether if it's someone's not able to be at the desk at that time, or even trying to be an easy reference tool in case folks don't want to start a full chat inquiry. We're really excited about that, and it really sets the foundation for us, not only in the training we've gotten now with the Copilot Studio environment, the experience of actually having to build an AI agent like this, but additionally, the capacity or the space it gives us to kind of grow into. We're already looking at deploying additional agents, agents that Link can talk to, not just connect you to other library resources, but also to other specialty AIs for your needs. And we went through a very aggressive focus group period, review period throughout this last year to make sure both our faculty, our students, even our colleagues were on board with it, that they understood what it was for, highlight some of their concerns, and try to work around some of those. It's constantly being updated, but we're really proud of that because that's something that we were able to do not only through the funding, but also the expertise that we've got connected to us at USF Libraries. In addition to this, we also have several members of the USF Libraries who get to serve on high-level committees at the university. We've really positioned ourselves quite well to try to be a leader in the conversation. Not only do we do a ton and arguably some of the most instruction on AI, we also try to educate our other experts across the institution on best practices from an information literacy background. I partner specifically with our copyright and intellectual property librarian, and between the two of us, we're able to really make an impact in the conversations that are happening across the institution about how we can better inform faculty, how we can better inform students across the board. This has actually led to us deploying the only student-facing training and guidance out there for AI usage. It is an asynchronous workshop series through Canvas that faculty are able to sign up to their students and have them complete for a badge, which they can turn in for credit. These are all those kind of possibilities that we've been able to do by being at the forefront there, and it's really, really shined in this last year where we've been able to stay at that forefront of those conversations. It's really allowed us to shape policy in many ways. Well, lastly, And I kind of touched on this a little bit just right there before, but we're continuing to press on in this kind of conversation and really lead that conversation. Our thing that we're probably the most proud of, outside of our, obviously Link is pretty cool on its own, but really the stuff we're the most proud of is our workshop programming and our LibGuide content. Our LibGuide on AI, we try to get out as soon as possible post ChatGPT, and we continue to update it every semester with the most recent stuff possible. It has become an integral part of the AI information ecosystem at USF, and it continues to be our most utilized LibGuide at USF libraries. We couple this then with a variety of synchronous workshop programming that covers everything from the foundationals of AI to advanced literature review, to the point where we're actually starting to get into qualitative, quantitative review, and even next semester looking at evidence synthesis with AI. Really exciting stuff that we're really pumped for, and that's been bringing in a lot of experts, not just myself, not just my colleague in copyright and intellectual property, but really bringing in a variety of experts who can speak on these topics. This has been very exciting for us because, like I said, it's kind of positioned us as a leader in the conversation and allowed us to kind of steer our own path there. We really want to put ourselves at the forefront, but I will note here, we have been very intentional in trying not to be the catch-all experts about AI. We want to lock down the research and the thing we were already doing before, the end that is backed up by great information literacy principles, because that's frankly what we're trained to do. That's where our expertise is. That's what we're prepared to talk about. As we get into the deeply technical elements, as we start talking about in-depth deployments, that's where we really lean on our AI college, our research IT unit, even our College of Education of recently, due to their use of pedagogy trainings and talking with educators and evidence-based practice in those fields. It's really allowed us to not step on anybody's toes, but really carve out our own space there and help kind of empower those other teams to go even further. It really creates a really nice culture there. And the last thing I really want to hit on here is just our true transparency-focused approach. We do not at all want to take a side in any of this conversation. That isn't to say that we don't actively talk about AI tool sets, that we don't want people to be informed. If there's a side, I guess we take, it's that we want people to critically review things. We want them to be educated about them. But I don't think we take, strictly speaking, a pro or anti-AI stance. We want to highlight both ends of it. It's a very complicated and nuanced topic and technology. And so a lot of what we've done is made sure that we're really clear about, if we build an AI, let's show you exactly how we build it, what it's feeding off of. There's no black boxes. There's no hidden content here. This is all for our community to be able to see, not just at USF, but we also want our research community to be able to see it. So a lot of the work we're doing, we're trying to get published so that we can share some of these things. We want to continue to do that. We don't want people to feel like we are just another corporation or entity like just blindly deploying AI. We want you to feel as a patron that you can trust us, that we're going to talk to you as a real human being and help elevate you to that next level. And a lot of that is just, frankly, just being transparent with every step. All right. I think that's the end of my content. We've got a lot of great resources that I've shared as well in this slide deck, and I really encourage you guys to check some of those out. They're some of our best resources. But again, thanks so much for listening a little bit about USF libraries.
All right. Thank you so much, Evan. Actually, thank you, both of you. Those were fantastic presentations. And now we're going to move over into the Q&A session. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll meet you in the Q&A room. Thanks.